So today we're doing a review for The Obelisk Gate by N.K. Jemisin. This is the second book in the Broken Earth trilogy. The first book is called The Fifth Season. I do have a review for the first book. The first book review is spoiler free. It has 3 pros and 3 cons, all spoiler free so that you can decide if it's the right book for you, and then I go into brief spoilers in that review. This review is going to be entirely spoiler filled because it is book 2, but if you want my overall thoughts, I gave this book 3.5 stars. I thought that it was good, but not nearly as good as book 1. If you want more in-depth spoiler-free thoughts, I recommend checking out my blog. I'll link it in the corner as well as in the description. I kind of summarize my pros and my cons in that, so this is going to be more dedicated to discussion for people who have read it or who don't plan to read it. So, spoiler-filled review. Here we go. We're going to start with the things that I loved about this book. First thing I think that this series in general so far does wonderfully is it's a sci-fantasy series, but this is a post-apocalyptic story where it's after the world is ending. The moon has disappeared and society is collapsing, and I think that this book does a really brilliant job at showcasing how truly dark, cutthroat, and disturbing the world would become if it truly was ending, and how inhumane some humans would become if the world was ending, how it would become, how can I survive, as opposed to how can we survive. And I think that this book really does a good job at being as dark as it should be, which is really hard to read sometimes. I think that's probably one of my favorite things about the series in general, even though like after book 1 I had to take a break because it got too dark for me. And I didn't really have that experience with book 2. One thing that was really hard for me to read in this book, but by the end I ended up appreciating so much, is the relationship between Essun and Nassun. So Nassun is Essun's daughter, if you don't remember. And in this book, Nassun is a main contender. She's one of the main point of views, and she gets a lot of page time. And I loved her perspective, but one thing that I really appreciated was to see their relationship. So the thing is with book 2 is in book 1, Shafa is Essun's caretaker when her name is Demaya, I think. And he is difficult because he shows her affection, but he also is abusive to her, and both physically and verbally abusive, and treats her terribly, but she develops such a love and affection to him because her parents were so distanced and cruel to her. And even though Shafa is cruel to her as well, he also shows her affection that she hasn't received anywhere else. And so Demaya, Essun, becomes very attached to him. And it's a difficult relationship to watch because he's not someone that you want her to be attached to because he doesn't treat her well. But his intention is, I'm doing this stuff to you, I'm breaking your hand, I'm saying these things to you, I'm keeping distance from you because I want you to survive, and I want to make sure that you're going to use your abilities well. Fast forward to book 2. Essun has become Shafa in certain ways with how she handles Nassun. So Essun breaks her daughter's hand to make sure that she can control herself. Essun distances herself and punishes her and is extra harsh with her and extra critical with her because she wants her to survive. Essun isn't being an affectionate, loving, caring mom, but she's going to make sure her kid is going to survive. And she makes the decision she makes because she wants her kid to survive and to use her abilities the correct way. Because of that, Nassun feels no affection toward her mother. In fact, she has a lot of bitterness and hurt from her mother. And now she's with Shafa. Shafa has forgotten a large portion of who he is, and what he does remember, he doesn't particularly like. So, he is treating Nassun with care and affection as well as training her, but his training is different now, and it's taken out a lot of that harshness and abusiveness that was in it when he was with Essun. And now, here we are, full circle. Nasun is attached to Shafa more than her mother because her mother, in some ways, has become Shafa. She raised her daughter with a distanced cruelness for the sake of her daughter's survival, and now Shafa is once again the one that the young girl is attached to because that's the only affection she's receiving, and kids need affection. And it was hard to read, to see Esun become Shafa in so many ways with how she raised her daughter. But it was also really, at the end of the book, when I stepped back and I realized, wow, this sort of became full circle. Esun became a reflection of who raised her with how she's raising her daughter. And now Shafa is being a better version of this, where he's still training her and teaching her and caring for her, but offering that affection and giving her more of what a child needs. And now he's reaping the benefits by being the one that Nasun is attached to. It was really an interesting experience to see Esun go in that circle. It was really interesting, as Esun and Nasun were our main perspectives, it was really interesting to see the two different origins, one old and experienced and one young and just trying to figure things out, to see their different interactions with their abilities and with the world. I also really like that this book expanded on the world and the magic in general quite a bit. We get a lot of answers in the bounds and limits of orogeny, as well as a lot more information about the culture and the world itself. A lot more answers, but also a ton more questions asked that still have yet to be answered. Those are pretty much all my pros. I really like Nesun. I found the dynamic between Nasun. I really liked Nasun. I found the dynamic between Esun, Nasa, and Shafa very interesting in this book. And I liked the expansion of the world and the magic. Now, I also have some cons. This is a book that I have pretty mixed feelings on. I think probably my main contributor to not loving this book as much is I didn't find it nearly as interesting. In book one, we're exploring a new world and we're exploring a whole new magic system and new characters, and it's a lot to take in, but there's this thread of intrigue throughout the whole thing. We have these three POVs, and we know they're connected somehow, but we don't know how, and we don't know why the second POV, why the one perspective is in second person. And I found it intriguing the entire way through, and I wanted to keep reading, and there was so much to discuss. With book two, I didn't feel that way at all. I found it interesting enough that I didn't DNF, but it was hard to pick back up. I wasn't very interested, especially with Esun's perspective. I found Esun's perspective really boring, and truly, Esun's perspective felt like a big info dump. Book one felt so intentional. The author had a goal that she was accomplishing. She had a mystery to be revealed. She had a world to explore. She had a foundation to lay. Book two, especially in Esun's perspective, felt like, let me give you all the information you need in order to get to book three. It felt like a bridge book. It felt like, here's a bunch of information that I couldn't give you in book one because of the artsy and unique way I formatted book one, but you still need this information before we can get to the final thing, so here's just a book of information. And I didn't like it. It was boring, and I didn't like the way it was done. That's Esun's perspective. Nasun's perspective was properly interesting. We got an organic way of exploring the world and the magic system further. We got a lot of character development in all three of our main characters that we were exploring in this book. Nasun's perspective felt like the perspective that the author really loved and cared about and put her attention and caring toward. Esun's perspective felt sloppy. And it felt like the author used her as a means to get information to us and didn't put near the care and attention into it. This is obviously a personal opinion. This is how I felt. Others may disagree, but this is how I felt. And since Esun got more page time than Nasun did, it was a lot of boring chapters. The other thing that didn't take away from the experience for me, but I just don't get, is why are we still in second person? I figured that would end after book two because second person has been utilized, and it worked. Hoa was telling the story to Esun, The end. Now the 3 POVs have converged. We know that they're all one person. Why are we still in second person? It felt kind of pointless. It didn't bother me because the second person perspective doesn't bother me. But why are we still doing it? I'm hoping there's a purpose to it. I know that Shafa lost his memory. What's his name? Alabaster is, I assume he's losing his memories now that he's a stone eater. So I guess Essun is likely going to lose her memory too, which is why Hoa's telling her the story. I assume in book three, Essun is going to lose her memory and Hoa is going to begin telling the story, and that'll kind of bring this whole second person perspective full circle. So I really hope that's true. I really hope that it's not just continuing for the sake of continuing and that there is a purpose for it. I do trust this author because she is very intentional, so I'm hoping that that's the case. So Essun can now connect with the obelisks, and knows where her daughter is. That's something that's going to be really interesting to explore in book 2. It'll be very interesting to see their reunion, and I do hope that, because I know that in the end of book 2, Essun kind of realizes, I didn't do this right. I tried so hard for my daughter's survival that I messed up being her mom. And I really, really appreciated those couple pages of self-reflection where she realizes, man, I could have done this better. Her intentions were good, but she became Shafa in the way she handled her daughter. And she realized, didn't do it right. So I'm really curious about their reunion because Nasun is still pretty mad at her mom, understandably so. And so to see them come together, I'm really hoping for an interesting but well-resolved reunion. I hope that Essun is able to convey her love to her daughter and they're able to come together in a really beautiful way. I really, really hope. Alabaster is now a stone eater, which I've been waiting for this reveal. You know what I mean? In the prologue of book 1, the first stone eater we meet is made of stone. And then the end of book 1, we find out that Hoa is a stone eater and he's just taken on human form, but his true persona is stone eater. And so at the end of book 1, when Alabaster starts turning to stone, my first thought was, oh, he's becoming a stone eater, because we already know that stone eaters look like stone. They turn into stone. They are stone. And that they can have a human form, and that's why Hoa has a human form, because he put the human form on, essentially. So I've been waiting for Alabaster to become a stone eater this entire time because I thought that's what we were building up to. But then when it was revealed, it was treated as a big, shocking reveal. And I don't know. This author didn't do something wrong because she laid the clues out for us. And that's good. You want that. But I don't know. I didn't find it to be a big, exciting reveal because the clues were there, which isn't a negative thing, but it didn't make the ending as shocking for me because it wasn't shocking. Like, that's not a con. I'm out of the con section. I'm now just talking about what's to come. So it's not a negative thing that I saw the clues and put together what's going on, obviously. It's just, I don't know. I guess I'm disappointed because so many people say that the book was boring until the end, and the end was amazing, and the end was good. But I assume the reason people say it's amazing is because Alabaster is revealed to be a stone eater, and I just have been waiting for that reveal for so long that it wasn't a really satisfying reveal for the end of a book. So now we're finally on our journey to bring back the moon. This is another thing that I've been waiting since the end of book 1. Alabaster said, "Have you ever heard of the moon?" So naturally you assume with that last line that means that the reason the world is ending, the reason the world is going into complete... Yeah, I've been waiting for that throughout the entire book as well, waiting to see how the moon's displacement is what broke the earth and waiting for them to pursue it. So at the end of book 2, they're finally going to start pursuing it, which again is why this feels like such a bridge book, because the two big thing, there were several big things that happened at the end, but those felt like the biggest things to me. And those two things were revealed at the end of book 1. And then at the end of book 2, it's like, okay, now we're going to do something with this. It just felt like book 1 was a lot of world expansion. And some of it was done well in Nasun's perspective, and some of it I didn't think was done well in Esun's perspective. So yeah, I have really mixed feelings. There are things that I loved about this book that I thought were done beautifully, and then there were things that I just didn't. Overall, it's a 3.5 star book because I think that it was still an interesting addition, and it makes me excited for book 3, and I'm ready for book 3, but I don't think that I thought book 1 was masterfully put together, and I felt like one perspective was well put together in this book, and the other perspective was really boring, and just the care wasn't put into it. In my opinion, that's how it felt to me. I'm very curious to hear you guys' perspective. This book seems to be one that gets kind of mixed reviews. Some people love it as much as book 2 or book 1, or they love it even more than book 1. Some people also feel that it was pretty much middle book syndrome. So I'm very curious to hear more about what you guys thought about it. I post videos every Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I'll see you guys again soon. Bye.